Yo, welcome to the show. I am Gunnar, a travel reporter at Thrifty Traveler and a flight deal analyst for Thrifty Traveler Premium. And Kyle, when I go to an airport lounge, first thing I like to do is as I'm walking in to find a seat, I'm making eye contact with the bartender. All right, I just need them to know. I need them to know what's coming and that I'm coming, okay? Just to let them know, just to set the tone. And then I'd go and try and find a seat with a tarmac view or at least a TV view, something along those lines. And then I get up right away and go find like a lemonade or a juice because I undoubtedly sweat through my shirt walking to the lounge from where I got through security. And I think, and then, obviously a trip over to the bartender who's been dreading my arrival since I walked in and stared them down. And then, of course, right before I leave, my signature move, a to-go champagne in a coffee cup for the walk to the gate.
An airport lounge bartender hates to see Hurricane Gunnar coming.
What about you?
All right. I'm Kyle Potter, executive editor of Thrifty Traveler, which means I write dumb words on the internet. I get to be a little bit of a dick on social media sometimes, and increasingly say dumb words into this here microphone. My lounge plan of attack is if there's an outdoor space or something like it, beeline straight for it. Because I'm going to get as much fresh air or manufactured fresh air as I possibly can before getting into a metal tube. And also, those outdoor areas, if they exist, are typically like at the back of the lounge, which means fewer people get there. So that's my little safe haven. And then it's, drop off bags, find a spot, get something to eat, get a drink. I'm not trying to strike fear into the heart of airport lounge bartenders. Their lives are hard enough as is. Gunnar, what are you doing?
The airport lounge bartender is part of the family. It's tough love like you get with at the Thanksgiving table. The lounge bartenders are really important.
It is an important part of the ecosystem. I will grant you that.
All right. I like your order of operations, your plan of attack. Today on the show, we're talking all about airport lounges and why we think it's the thriftiest thing you can do at the airport. Plus, we're going to dig into the new massive bonus on the Capital One Venture X card. We're going to ask if AI can help you plan your trip. We're going to hear from a listener who's better at traveling than us by a long shot. And if we have time, Kyle's going to reveal the secret ingredient that really makes his famous espresso tonic recipe shine. All that and more. Welcome back to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to announce something that we're really excited about. Later this year, we're going to do a holiday episode starring you, the listener. So we love hearing from you at podcast@thriftytraveler.com, but we wanted to get some of you on the show. So if you booked an awesome trip this year that you want to brag about, or you have something coming up in the new year that you want to brag about, or you have a question for us or some sharp criticism of the show, I want you to go to thriftytraveler.com/voicemail or find the link in our show notes and leave us a voicemail message under 1 minute. You can send that to thriftytraveler.com/voicemail to leave us a message there. We really can't wait to hear from you. Okay, Kyle, to start the show, I need to find something out. Have you ever used AI to help you plan a trip?
No. Back in like 2022, so a lifetime ago it feels like now, as AI tools built around travel first started to crop up, I tried it out by just kind of taking it for a test run to see what it would recommend for our hometown here in Minneapolis. And it recommended a walk across the Stone Arch Bridge in February, which I would not recommend. And it also recommended dinner at Bachelor Farmer, which at that point had been closed for years. So I am safe to say a little bit skeptical of using AI for trip planning. I think there are some serious risks if you don't seriously vet everything.
Yeah, obviously vetting it is the most important thing. I also had not used it at all to travel plan until this week. So I decided to put some of them to the test. Obviously, I'm a little bit skeptical of AI in some ways, including what it means for the environment. But I know that we hear from a lot of people all the time who are using these chatbots to help their travels, including some members of our team. So I looked at ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Claude, Google Gemini, and DeepSeek, and I ran the exact same prompt through all 5 of them for a trip I have coming up to Finland. And you know what? I was pretty impressed with most of them. I thought DeepSeek was pretty uninspired and basic, and I wouldn't go back there. Gemini, I had high hopes for because they integrate Google Flights and Google Hotels right in there, but I found it pretty lacking. You kind of had to just keep asking and asking for the same things. Copilot and ChatGPT were both great. Really helpful, offered lots of options. They were good with dining, which is a big kind of blind spot of mine when I'm traveling, and very detailed. I thought Copilot had a better format. But I thought the best by far was Claude. It had a really nice, easy to use layout. Not only dining and activity recommendations, but also an explanation as to why it would work for my group, which is 4 adults and an infant, which is kind of a tricky, travel problem to fix. I thought that was really good. And then most importantly, Claude also line item budgeted every single thing in the trip without prompting. So basically, it just listed out what it thought the estimated cost of every single aspect of the trip was going to be, totaled it up at the bottom per person and total. It was really impressive, and I thought it kind of got the ballpark of the flights and hotels a lot better than some of the other ones did as far as their guesses. So Claude, I would recommend Claude if you want to go try and plan a trip. I use the free version of all of these, so this is something that anybody out there could do.
You wrote this great story for us last week, and we'll link it in the show notes, kind of comparing each of these five of some of the most popular tools, right? And so I think it's super helpful for steering people in the right direction, because there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all answer here, and all of these tools are going to change over time. I'm curious, though, was there anything that Claude or any of the others recommended that wasn't already on your radar for your trip to Finland that you're now making a piece of your trip?
One of the things, there's actually a reindeer farm that I did not see. Usually I can do most of my travel planning on Google Maps, just poking around and finding things. But there was a reindeer farm that we might have to go to. But I think mostly it was helpful for restaurants. Helping us find places where an infant would be welcome was also helpful. And then most of these also said, which restaurants were going to require reservations and how far in advance you needed those reservations. So I think Claude, Copilot, and ChatGPT all were like, here's this restaurant in Rovaniemi. You need to get on this now if you're traveling in December. So that stuff I found really helpful. It's kind of, they're scraping lots and lots of internet comments and finding people's data points that I maybe otherwise wouldn't have found. So that was pretty helpful. Ultimately, we're all the best planners of our own trips, and I wouldn't use this to plan an entire trip and follow it beat by beat, but to fill in a gap or to give yourself kind of a baseline of what a trip might look like. I think these are really helpful.
Yeah, to revisit that happy hour that we talked about last week's show in New York City, podcast listener Carla had a great comment about how she uses AI for planning trips, less so on researching what to do, but more on feeding it all of the things that they want to do. For example, in a 4 or 5 day trip in London, and you want to go to X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. And then and Carla said she uses AI to help plan a logical itinerary to make sure you're not doing a ton of backtracking, kind of plot things out on a map for you to make sure you're structuring your trip wisely. I think that maybe is, at least as we're talking right now, maybe the best way to use AI in travel planning is just making sure you're figuring out the best, most logical way to attack a trip.
I love it. We're attacking this episode of the podcast. Okay, let's get into something hot and something cold. It's the good and bad in travel news from the last week. And we'll start, as always, with something hot, which is brought to you by Thrifty Traveler Premium this week. Our team has been on a bit of a roll. It's been good.
That's nothing new, but yeah, it's the roll continues.
We've been on a roll, finding the cheapest flights around the world, some of the best ways to use your points and miles, and most importantly, alerting you to business class award availability as soon as it pops open. We're searching for more than 200 U.S. and Canadian airports, including probably yours. Check us out today at thriftytraveler.com/premium and use code TTPOD for $20 off your first year of premium flight deal alerts. Okay, Kyle, something hot this week is a new sign-up bonus offer on the Capital One Venture X card. So new applicants for the card can earn 100,000 Capital One Venture miles after spending $10,000 in the first 6 months of card membership. That's a lot, but they're giving you a full 6 months to hit that spend. So if you can spend $1,667 a month, 120,000 miles are yours, 120,000 because the 2x points you earn on that first 10,000 to get there. That's up from the standard welcome bonus of 75,000 miles after spending $4,000 in 3 months. It's the biggest bonus we've seen on the card since it launched a few years ago. That 120,000 Capital One miles is worth a minimum of $1,200, but probably way more on a card that is $395 annually. Where does this card rank for you in the pantheon of travel rewards cards, and what does this bonus do for that?
It's at or near the top, and this bigger bonus would only put it higher if I didn't already have it. Capital One and the Venture X card stand out to me for 3 reasons. One is the versatility of these miles, and that you can transfer them to Turkish Airlines or Air France or British Airways, and a long and increasingly longer list of transfer partners to get more bang for your buck. But you also have something to fall back on, something that I increasingly fall back on, not to book flights or hotels, but to book all of the other things in travel that make travel special. So, I talked in the episode before about, booking that small boat cruising around the bays of Bora Bora and booking that through Viator so that we could then go back and use Capital One miles, because it's a travel purchase, to erase the purchase altogether. Every point is worth 1 cent. So if it's a $100 expense, that's 10,000 venture miles. This is one of the most flexible ways to use Capital One miles period, and to be able to do really special things like that you otherwise can't cover with points is really, really cool, and I think sets Capital One apart. Having another 120,000 of those venture miles, I would jump at that chance, but my wife and I already have this card primarily because it's just so dang easy to use and to come out ahead. I mean, how many hours have we now spent talking about, in some ways railing about, the new Amex Platinum card at almost $900 a year, and all of the credits that are monthly or quarterly or biannual or annual. And the same increasingly goes for the now $800 a year Chase Sapphire Reserve. And then, there's the Capital One Venture X card, which clocks in at under $400 a year, comes with a $300 annual travel credit, which is very easy to use. So automatically that's $95 a year. You get 10,000 miles each time you renew that card each year. So then, if you value each of those at roughly a cent or more, you're already coming out ahead on this card. No card makes it so easy. And, to the topic of this show, Capital One lounges to me have set the bar higher than any of the other bank-operated lounges. They are growing popular to a fault, as all airport lounges are, but Capital One does a better job of controlling how many people they let in, so that once you do get in, even if there is a 20-30 minute wait, Capital One lounges are just really special places in the United States and the few airports where they've got them. So yeah, this would be a no-brainer for me if I didn't already have the card.
Yep, this is the best card in my wallet. I love this card very much. It's also just the perfect player 2 card for my wife, who really doesn't want to have to do all the mental math of where should I put all this spend. I just tell her, put it on the Venture X because you're earning 2x points.
It's invaluable, even not just for somebody who doesn't want to juggle a bunch of cards. There is always going to be those situations where you don't have the right card for that expense, and then the Capital One Venture X just becomes the go-to in those situations.
Yep, it's a great one. Okay, should we pivot to something cold?
If we have to.
All right, we knew this was coming, but it still hurts. So way back in 2023, then DOT Secretary Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration announced they'd propose a new federal rule that would require airlines to compensate passengers for delays and cancellations, much like they already do in Europe, Canada, and elsewhere. The proposal called for compensation of $200 to $300 for domestic delays of 3 hours or more, and up to $775 for lengthy international disruptions, but it never took effect. This summer, we heard rumblings that the Trump administration was going to scrap this effort altogether. What happened late last week, Kyle, and why?
What happened late last week is that the Trump administration made it official that this is not going to happen. They're not going to pursue this. They, really bought the airline's argument that this was going to result in higher costs that airlines would then pass on to you and I and everybody listening to this in the form of higher fares, which may or may not be true. I would just note that when this was first proposed back in spring of 2023, the airline's chief lobbying organization, Airlines for America, said that it would destroy cheap fares. I mean, they went like full shock campaign against this, that it would destroy the cheap fares that people love. To which I would say, how are cheap fares looking over in Europe, where this system has been in place for more than 2 decades now? I mean, there are a lot of cheap fares flying in and out of Europe. and especially around Europe. It's disappointing for a couple of reasons, but I do want to say it is, again, not a surprise, not just because, the Trump administration hinted that this would be coming a couple of months ago, but because this was always a bit of a Hail Mary, even when it was introduced or first unveiled by the Biden administration in 2023. I mean, case in point, while they announced that they were going to do this in, I think, May of 2023, they didn't actually start the federal rulemaking process until after the 2024 election in December, which means there's no way for that to actually make its way through the federal rulemaking process, which typically takes years, not months. So it's not a surprise, but I think the spirit of this was in two things. One, to do right by consumers when things go wrong in air travel and make sure that airlines are held accountable for that when it is a delay or a cancellation that's in their control. So low staffing, a computer system meltdown, a mechanical issue on the flight. These are the things where this kind of compensation would have been triggered, and make sure that, Americans who are traveling who have shockingly few rights to begin with aren't left holding the bag and paying for a surprise night at a hotel, additional meals, whatever that may be. But more importantly, I think this would have really forced airlines to get their acts together, and that was really what they were trying to do. Because if you think back a couple of years ago, I mean, we couldn't go more than a couple of months at a time without a major airline meltdown. We're now coming on the heels of a nationwide aviation meltdown, which was caused by the government shutdown and shortages of FAA and air traffic controllers, which wouldn't have been subject to these kind of compensation rules. But still, this is so present for Americans. There is really no recourse when things go wrong beyond hoping that the airline is going to do the right thing. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, but it's up to them.
Yeah, this could have been the thing that would make airlines start selling schedules that they can actually operate. And unfortunately, airlines don't have to. They're not required to sell a schedule that they can actually operate. It looks like that they can operate them, right? That's why they're allowed to run these like really aggressive schedules out of the New York area when, things always just cascade and get messy there, especially in the evenings. And okay, we need to add one more on. We're going to do something colder, Kyle, because this one deserves it. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how United lowered some points and miles rates it was charging to book some of its partners like Swiss or TAP Air Portugal or Lufthansa or ANA and more. It was really good news. We were really excited to pass it along. But in that discussion, I asked you, Kyle, is this going to hold? Did it hold, Kyle?
Don't go back and listen to that tape. That take also did not age very well, because no, unfortunately, it didn't hold. I was hopeful that this was a sign that United was just going to lower the award rates to match what they charge for their own flights, because they didn't need an additional incentive to get people to have their credit cards and get a discount. And lo and behold, what they've done is they've taken these lower award rates, paying 80,000 miles for a Lufthansa business class one-way flight to Frankfurt instead of 88,000. And they're now making that, again, a perk of holding a United Mileage Plus card. So you only benefit from these lower rates if you have one of those, United Explorer, United Quest, United Club cards in your wallet, which, you know what? Shame on me for not seeing the fact that United was definitely going to do this. It should have been obvious. Lesson learned.
Shame on you. Shame on United. It's a tough one. That's why it's something colder this week. All right, we'll be right back. All right, you guys know we love a good travel hack, and HotelSlash might be one of the best. It was built by the same team behind AutoSlash, which has saved travelers millions on rental cars over the past 15 years, and that's just the savings they've saved from me. Now they're doing the same thing, but for hotels. Here's an example. So I found a weekend stay in Miami at a Marriott property. I looked on one of the big travel booking sites. It was pricing out around $612 for 2 nights. HotelSlash had the same stay for $525 all in. That's nearly $90 right back in my pocket, and you're going to need that $90 at a place like Miami.
You will. And on top of those savings, you also earn Slash Cash on prepaid bookings to use on future stays. You can try it for free for 90 days at HotelSlash.com with code ThriftyTraveler, all one word. That code also gets you $20 off your first prepaid booking. HotelSlash, built for thrifty travelers like you.
Okay, we're back, and it's time for the Extra Mile, where we dig a little deeper on an important travel topic. And this week, we're talking lounges. which I think kind of unfairly have a reputation for being for the elites. But I think I would argue that they're at least worth it and that they're actually kind of thrifty, Kyle. So let's talk about why we think that's true. We're going to talk through how to get lounge access if you're interested, and some of our best kind of lounge tips, how to get guests into the lounge, etc. And then at the end of the segment, hopefully we're going to reveal a few of our favorite lounges around the world. That sound good to you?
Just to be clear, are you or are you not a bougie boy?
I have capable of bougie boy. I'm fluent in bougie boy, but yeah, you've seen my W-2s. I act like a
no
bougie
comment.
Boy. I act like a bougie boy, perhaps outside my means. Okay, let's talk about why lounges are worth it and why we think this is actually thrifty. Anything come to mind right away for you, Kyle? What is the money saving proposition here on going into an airport lounge besides the fact that they're nice and fun?
I just want to point out that we have spent a fair amount of time on this show, 30 some episodes in, ripping on airport lounges and how crowded they've become, and I stand by that. I do think people should go into the lounge experience with the expectation that it's going to be pretty full. But even at its worst, an airport lounge is an area that can save you money. And then the question becomes, are you saving more than you spent in order to get that lounge access, be it from, a premium travel credit card that gets you in or a business class ticket that you hopefully booked with miles. So, airports are just obscenely expensive. And I will admit, because I have airport lounge access, I can't remember the last time I spent money on something in the airport, whether it's a meal, an adult beverage before a trip, or just a coffee. Airport lounges solve that for me, and that does have monetary value in the end.
Yeah, and I think especially a lot of the tips we give about travel are things like, get to the airport early to protect yourself when things are messy, or book a longer layover if you're booking a positioning flight, or just booking a longer layover anyway, just also to protect yourself. Both of those things lend themselves very well to sitting in the airport for 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. And if you don't have a place to sit and eat and drink for free, or for whatever it costs you to get into the lounge, then all of a sudden you're leaving the Mexican cantina with a $175 bill just for your 3-hour layover. I've had some obscenely expensive airport concourse margaritas before. Never again, Kyle.
How expensive?
I mean, like the high teens for a margarita that was clearly just whipped up by someone who had never whipped up a margarita before. Just brutal.
Just a Jose Cuervo premix. That's with like 90% of the sugar content that you need in a day. Great.
A sugar bomb to help get you through an afternoon on the concourse. So I think just eating and drinking alone, like just having even if the people rip on the airport lounge buffet, and oftentimes they're not the most inspired meals that you're going to find, but at the cost, it's really good, and you can have as much as you want. And especially if you're there for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, you might need to eat more than once in some cases. So I just use them basically as a food and drink source for my travels, and I'm traveling enough that I know that I'm making my money back on the airport lounges, despite having several annual fee cards that get me into these lounges.
Yeah, and I mean, for anyone out there listening to this, and there definitely are many of you who say, I would rather pay good money for a better meal at an airport restaurant than choke down whatever they're serving in the lounge. Good on you. But that is a choice. And what we're talking about here is like making the financial choice of, yes, of course it costs money to get into airport lounges, but are you going to make that back in the long run over the course of a year of however often you're traveling, to make sure that you're actually coming out ahead on whatever method you're getting airport lounge access through?
Yeah, I think that's important. I also I use Delta Sky Clubs on arrival almost all the time, especially if I've already burned a Sky Club visit that day. And when you land at home and you need a quick meal before you go home because the fridge is bare after a long trip, it's really nice to be able to just pop in for a quick meal and let your bags come out. Or if you don't have bags, then just take your time and have a nice little lounge visit upon arrival. You can do those at Admirals Clubs, Alaska lounges as well. And then there are also like arrivals lounges around the world that can help you get through customs and things like that too. So
Yeah, I think importantly to spell that out a bit, Delta in the course of the last year and change implemented limits on how many times a year you can visit a Delta Sky Club if you get access through either an Amex Platinum card or the Delta Reserve card, 10 or 15 times a year respectively. But 2 visits or even 3 visits in the same 24-hour period counts as just a single visit of that 10 or 15. So if you're flying from Minneapolis and you're landing in Chicago, you can use the Minneapolis Delta Sky Club before departure, visit that O'Hare Sky Club upon arrival, and that's still only one of your 10 or 15 visits.
Cool. Okay. 2 other reasons why I think the lounge is worth it. One, I actually mentioned last week when we were talking about the delays and cancellations and everything that was going on. And I talked about my connection in Detroit, where the Delta app tried to rebook me through Cleveland on the way back to Minneapolis. And I used a Sky Club visit. I went in there and talked to a premium services agent who was able to not only get me on the standby list, but immediately confirm me onto a nonstop Delta flight back to Minneapolis instead. The customer service agents in the lounges are some of the best in the airport, some of the best in the system. And those are the people that you need to lean on when things get tough, when delays and cancellations pop up. So the service you're going to get in the lounges is exceptional.
To channel a YouTube commenter, what is your beef with Cleveland, Gunnar?
I have no beef with Cleveland, but it was snowing just as hard in Cleveland as it was in Detroit, and they wanted to reroute me through an airport further away from home. I also didn't want to fly on the 717, which was both legs of that flight. We're going to be on a 717. Not my favorite Delta plane.
That's a pass.
And sorry, go ahead.
The other nice thing is, when things do go wrong in air travel, you have overhead announcements. If you're flying Delta, if you're flying American, Delta agents or American agents, if you're, in the middle of a 2-hour long delay, you're going to get overhead announcements. Hey, we're starting to board in 10 minutes, head to your gate. It's a constant in a way that you just don't get those kind of easy reminders out in the terminal. So that part is really nice as well.
Yeah. And finally, the last reason why I think that they're worth it, it is fun. Like going to the lounges, I do find very fun. If you're flying several times a year, even just for vacations, having a place to go for a few cocktails or a refreshment or to kick your feet up is nice. It sometimes feels luxurious. You get there's sometimes a good energy. Go find the back bar. The back bar is usually where all the fun people are at. But I do like going, and it just makes the travel experience feel a little extra special when almost nothing feels special in the sky anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared before, my go-to anytime I'm flying Delta for like a personal vacation is to go to the bar, buy a bottle of champagne using Delta Sky Miles, because it's honestly one of, if not the best way to redeem Sky Miles these days on a regular basis. And that's just like a fun way to start off a trip. I'm curious, like, what is your X amount of trips per year? Like, what is the break-even point where you think, yes, this person should get lounge access, or no, it's probably not worth it?
Yeah, obviously it depends on what airport you're starting out. If your home base is an airport that doesn't have a lounge, maybe that changes the calculus for me. But I would say, like, if you're taking anything more than 4 or 5 trips a year, I think having some lounge access would probably be worth it. If you're taking way more, then you could probably add more cards to make sure that you're covered at all these different airports and things like that. But the way that we fly, I'm totally comfortable having several annual fee cards that give me lounge access, because I know I'm going to need lounges in a lot of the places I go, because I book extremely long layovers and I get to the airport early and I'm flying at weird times, and I need a free meal at the airport when I get there.
I think 4 or 5 times is in the right neighborhood. I do think that starting with what airports are you either flying out of most frequently or into and then back home from most frequently is probably the better starting point, because if there is a really good lounge and you can get in, that makes it a lot easier to stomach, the high annual fee that many of these cards that will get you in the door charge. If you don't have a lounge at your airport, it's really hard. That's a really tough starting point to justify it from.
Right. Okay, let's talk about how to get in. If you're sold and you want to access the lounge, or you're thinking about changing the lounges you get access to, Let's talk about the best ways to get in. Okay, Kyle, is there a one-stop shop that you have for figuring out what airports have what lounges? Like sometimes it's hard to figure it out, but we used to have Lounge Buddy, and that is now gone. So what do you use now?
I'm looking to see if there's anything I can easily pour out on our bookshelf behind us if you're watching on YouTube for Lounge Buddy, because that's still tough. American Express acquired that company and then just killed that app, which is a real bummer. There is a decent app replacement called Lounge Review, all one word, which is not perfect. I would say it's far inferior to what we had from Lounge Buddy, but that's a decent starting point where you can type in, your airport that you're departing from and see all of the lounges there, see what will get you access into those lounges. I tend to use just searching Amex Global Lounge Collection because, as we'll get into, the American Express Platinum card opens more lounge doors than any other credit card. And that's a good starting point for, if you believe that your Amex Platinum card is going to be what gets you into a lounge, that's going to pull up an easy list of all of the different airport lounges that are available to you at that airport, which terminal they're from, because, if you're departing from international versus domestic, the lounge options might be different. So between those two, that covers a lot of my bases.
Yeah, and the access rules tab on Lounge Review is really useful. It gives you a full breakdown of all the ways that you can get into the lounge, and including if you can buy your way into the lounge, which is sometimes between like $40 and $60 per visit, which can be worth it, especially if you're facing terminal prices on food and drink, like we mentioned earlier. So, okay, the main three ways, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, to get into the lounge are to find the right fare, have the right status, or get the right credit card. So first, we'll talk about the fare. That's pretty much the easiest one. It's business class fares and up, right?
Yeah, I mean, very, very rarely, if ever, that I can think of, will just a standard domestic first class ticket get you into a lounge. You really need a long haul international business or first class fare in order to get lounge access with that ticket. And I'll say, even then, it really depends on where you're departing from, of if that lounge access is going to be great. If you're flying from a major Delta hub that has a Delta One lounge, the Delta One lounge at JFK, while still very busy, is pretty spectacular. So if you're departing from JFK on a Delta One ticket or a Virgin Atlantic upper class ticket to London, that's going to get you into those lounges. But like if you're flying from some of the international carriers that depart from Terminal 5 in O'Hare, getting access to the Swissport Lounge, which might be the world's saddest airport lounge. It is a dark windowless room with a couple of things of food slapped on a counter and a cooler full of lukewarm drinks and not much else. That's not a whole lot to celebrate. So you do still need to do some research to figure out whether that pricey ticket, whether you booked with miles or with cash, is going to get you something special.
Yep, worth heading to Lounge Review to see what you're going to be able to access before you book that flight. It might be worth finding a different airport. I do want to note that there are some premium economy tickets worldwide. Particularly, I'm looking at Japan Airlines. I know for a fact that Japan Airlines premium economy does include lounge access when you're departing from Japan, which is a pretty awesome, a really good perk for a premium economy. That's also extremely rare. But business class fares and up will almost always include some sort.
There's one more to add to that list.
Oh, yeah?
SAS Plus, their version of premium economy, will get you access to SAS lounges where they have them. And I know they have one in Chicago O'Hare in Terminal 5. They have one in Newark for sure. They certainly have them in Copenhagen and Stockholm. And I'm not sure where else, but that's amazing, because not only is it, again, a premium economy ticket getting you lounge access, but their premium economy is dirt cheap. It is priced like most standard economy fares flying to and from Europe. So, if you want a lot more legroom, better service, a wider seat, and lounge access, an SAS Plus ticket is a good option.
Yeah, well, we always tell people, before you book just a regular main cabin flight over to Europe, go check and see what it would be to take a connection on SAS through Copenhagen, because it's probably priced around the same. You have to fly through Copenhagen, but you get lounge access when you get there, and then the short flight down into Europe. It might just be worth it for you. The next one that we said, the next best way to get into the lounges is having the right status. This is usually a very expensive way to get into the airport lounges. If you have status, you're probably paying one airline a lot of money over the course of a year. The highest level of status always gets you into lounges with obviously all the major U.S. airlines. I think One World, American's partnership, I think they have probably the best kind of lounge access rules worldwide. If you have any high level of One World status, like Sapphire or Emerald, the One World Emerald gets you into like every single One World lounge in the world, no matter what fare you're flying on. So it's a pretty unbelievable way to get into lounges there. So anything else on having the right status?
I mean, the key is really, that reciprocal status with the worldwide airline alliances for two reasons. One is that, even top Delta status is not going to get you into a Delta Sky Club. Not even top American status isn't necessarily going to get you into, American Admirals clubs, but having One World Emerald status that you can either get through that top status with your airline or, more importantly, match from your existing status. Say you have Delta Diamond status. All of the times we see, global airlines offer a status match to, say, I don't know, one of Cathay Pacific's top tiers of status, just as an example. You can get that, and then that gets you that top tier of One World status, which unlocks lounge access throughout the United States to Admirals clubs, to some amazing business and even first-class lounges around the world. This is an expensive avenue, but it might be the single best avenue on this list if you are very specific about which airports you're flying to and from.
Yep, good tip. Okay, the easiest, the best way, the way that we all do it to access the lounge is to get the right credit card. This is where the value is. This is where airport lounges become available to people like me who otherwise should never be allowed into an airport lounge. You mentioned the Amex Platinum card. Tell me about that one, and what are some of the other best credit cards for lounge access?
I mean, the Amex Platinum card is, and probably always will be, the top dog of this because it gets you into their Centurion lounges, of which there are now more than a dozen in the United States, and abroad, I think more than 30. So there's a lot to pick from there. Are they the best? Certainly not. They tend to be more overcrowded than even anything else on this list, but they're there. Escape lounges, which I would say are an underrated alternative, especially at smaller airports like our home airport here in Minneapolis, but they also have lounges in Oakland and like Greensboro and other cities that I don't even know if I can properly pronounce them. So that's a great option. You also get 2 free guests at escape lounges, no matter how you get in, which is great. Delta Sky Clubs, as we've touched on, again, with the Amex Platinum card, there is a 10 visit per year limit. You can mess with those 10 visits. We'll get into that a little bit more later. And then you also get a priority pass membership, which is at this point, I think 1,500 plus lounges around the world. Some far, far, far better than others. Some priority pass lounges are pretty basic, but again, even a basic lounge can save you some money, at the very least, on coffee and water. In the best case, a full meal.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about the Capital One Venture X in our Something Hot segment, and you said that the Capital One lounges have really impressed you. Tell me about the access you get with that card.
Well, today you get you can get yourself into any Capital One lounge and get 2 free guests. And maybe more importantly, your authorized users, which are free to add to the Capital One card, get their own free access and their own free guests to all Capital One lounges, which at this point are, off the top of my head, okay, let's do this. Dallas Fort Worth, DC Dulles, Denver, Las Vegas, and JFK. Plus they have they call it a Capital One Landing in DC Reagan. Which is like a hybrid lounge airport restaurant. You can dine for free. How'd I do? Did I get it?
Yeah, I think you got it.
All right.
I didn't double check you. Not a fact checker.
Email Gunnar at gunnar@thriftytraveler.com if I got that wrong. But as of February 1st, that is all changing because they're cutting the free guest access as well as free lounge access for authorized users. If you have an authorized user on a Venture X card, that will continue to be free. But as of February 1st, 2026, you're going to have to pay $125 a year to extend lounge access to that authorized user, which is a big bummer, but it's going to solve what's an increasing problem for Capital One, which is like everybody else on this list, these lounges are getting too busy and they need to make some cutbacks. But again, to my mind, Capital One lounges are some of the best in the business, at least from the big banks, in large part because they are much more proactive at limiting how many people get into those lounges than the likes of like Chase or American Express.
Speaking of Chase, let's round out the big three of premium credit cards. The Chase Sapphire Reserve. Where can you go with that one?
Chase is building out its own network of Chase Sapphire lounges, which I will say are also pretty excellent. They've got, at this point, I think close to 10 in the United States plus one in Hong Kong, and they're working on more. So there are more to pick from than Capital One, which is a big plus. Importantly, it's not your Chase Sapphire Reserve card that's getting you into these lounges. It's the Priority Pass membership that comes specifically from that card, which means you have to activate that and use that to get in. But you can get in yourself and 2 guests for free at any Chase Sapphire lounge. Plus, it comes with, that same access to 1,500 plus Priority Pass lounges as well.
Yeah. Okay, this is an unexpected one as one of the premium credit cards that gets you lounge access. The Ritz-Carlton card?
So I would say if you live in Philadelphia or, you use either JFK or LaGuardia as your main airport in and out of New York, or any of the other, at this point, 10-ish U.S. airports that have a Chase Sapphire lounge that you want to visit, the best card is not the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It's the Ritz-Carlton card, which comes with an important caveat. You cannot today apply for a Ritz-Carlton card. It is not open to applicants. You can, however, product change an existing Chase Marriott card to the Ritz-Carlton card. And that's important for 2 reasons. 1, the annual fee is lower than the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. And 2, not only can you get into Chase Sapphire lounges for free, but you can also bring unlimited guests. So again, if you live in, the New York area or Philadelphia or Boston, one of these airports, and especially if you are traveling with a family, the Ritz-Carlton card is by far the better option here.
How long till they close that loophole? Next week's show will be addressing this?
It depends on how much they want to look like a bunch of jackasses.
Doesn't take much. All right. Let's talk about some of the airline cards. We'll go through these rather quickly, but the major U.S. carriers all offer some version of a lounge access card. What's Delta got?
Delta has the Delta Reserve card, which of course gets you Delta Sky Club access like the Amex Platinum that's capped. So you only get 15 visits per year. That's 5 more than the Amex Platinum card, so that goes a little bit further. The annual fee is lower, so that's worth considering if you're only flying in and out of Delta hubs. But importantly, you get 4 free annual guest passes a year. So if you're traveling, fairly often, say for work, but you take a couple of family trips or a couple of trips a year with a spouse, this becomes a great way to bring guests in for free. After that, you pay $50 a pop after you use up those guest passes. So it becomes pretty restrictive pretty quickly. Importantly, you can also get into both Centurion lounges and Escape lounges if you booked your ticket with your Delta Reserve card and you're flying Delta that day. You can get into those lounges as well. So there is a little bit more there, and so that one is worth considering. I would say only for really heavy Delta flyers. I think anybody else who considers themselves more of a free agent is probably going to be better served by an Amex Platinum card.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll lump these two into the same category because both of them offer pretty much unlimited access to the club. So the United Club card gets you just a full United Club lounge membership. You just get access as much as you want. And then if you need to go take a bathroom break while I read the name of this card, you can. The American Airlines Executive Platinum World Elite MasterCard also gives you unlimited Admirals Club access. So both those clubs cards are very simple. You just open the card and you get the full access. This new American Airlines card, this Globe card, kind of their mid-tier product, gets you 4 24-hour Admirals Club passes annually. So it's not a full-on membership. It's just like the Delta cards or the Amex, you get a couple of passes per year. And same thing with the Atmos Rewards Summit Visa Infinite card, also a mouthful from Alaska Airlines. That would be 8 Alaska Lounge passes per year with that one.
Can we stage an intervention for airlines and hotel chains and marketing firms? Like, guys, knock it off. This is getting ridiculous.
Yes, you should only get 2 words to describe your card. Tell me what the airline is and tell me what whatever color or rock stone or whatever you need to name it. But you get just your name and then the stone, and that's it. All right.
We have spoken.
Infinite, executive, world elite. Come on,
no,
please.
We don't need that. The Citi Strata Elite card, which just launched this summer, I think, also has a Priority Pass membership like many others on this list. So 1,500 plus Priority Pass lounges, plus just 4 American Admirals Club passes. So if you have like a go-to Priority Pass lounge in your home airport or an airport you're frequently flying to, but you're also doing enough travel at American hubs to justify having lounge access at their clubs, that's another option as well.
And 2 weeks ago, episode 35, we talked about how Southwest is opening lounges, and they've basically explicitly said they're going to open a new kind of highest level credit card that will give you access to those lounges. It's all part of their big plan. You can go back to that episode and listen to that discussion, but I wanted to mention it here because they don't have any of these new products yet. They don't have a lounge open yet, but we know it's coming, so I wanted to include them in this list that eventually you're going to be able to get into a Southwest lounge with a Southwest credit card of sorts.
And again, if you name that card the Southwest Rapid Rewards Infinity Sterling Plus card, you will be hearing from us and you will be something cold.
Oh man, I cannot wait for that segment down the line. Okay, let's I want to get into a segment here that I just want to call How to Lounge. Just some of our favorite tips for using lounges. If you've never done it before or if you've been using lounges for a while, things may have changed. The first one, tell me about digital queues.
Really important, because the last thing you want is to spend, 10 minutes walking to the lounge or, God forbid, 20 transferring terminals only to find there's a line out the door. So fortunately, especially American Express and Capital One, I would say Chase, to a lesser extent, has rolled out digital queues that allow you to join the wait list from your phone and then get a text when it's your time when you're clear to go into the lounge. So this is something, every time I fly to or through Denver, I join that digital wait list for the Capital One Lounge in Denver, basically just as soon as the plane pulls up to the gate, because I know at the most I'm 15 to 20 minutes away from that lounge. So this is just a great way to skip standing around waiting in line. American Express has made their digital wait list much better within the last couple of months as well. It's a great option to get yourself in line without actually having to physically be there. This isn't something you want to do hours in advance, though, because typically you're going to get to that text within 20 to 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, really good tip. There's another one that you put in here about specifically when you're trying to access Sky Clubs. What's your favorite tip there?
Yeah, whether you have the American Express Platinum card or the Delta Reserve card, make sure that is added to your Delta.com Sky Miles wallet saved as a payment method, because that means when you go to scan into the Sky Club and you scan your boarding pass, you don't also have to whip out your Delta Reserve card or your American Express Platinum card. It's attached to your account, so the Delta agent at the door sees, oh, they've got an Amex Platinum card, they're free to walk in.
Yeah, that makes it very, very easy as well. Also, if you have the Amex Platinum card, that $200 airline credit can be used towards more lounge access. So that $50 per time after you've already expended all of your 10 Sky Club visits allots for more visits. So you can actually get 14 visits if you don't use that airline credit elsewhere.
And American Airlines and United still sell day passes to everyday travelers. So if you're stuck at a United hub somewhere and you want to get into the lounge and you haven't used your $200 a year airline credit yet, you could, in theory, use that credit to trigger the price of a day pass. You would need to make sure that you've selected United or American as your airline. So this isn't something that you can do spur of the moment. It's probably something you need to plan ahead for.
Smart. Okay. Tell me about authorized users.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, based upon your perspective of whether lounge crowding is a good or a bad thing, you know, the big banks have really cracked down on extending lounge access to authorized users, which means you now need to pay for it. But the plus is that it could be worth it, especially, you know, in my household, for example, my wife travels a lot for work. And we travel a lot together. So it is worth it for us to have lounge access on the same card, in this case, the American Express Platinum card. So I pay $195 a year to have her as an authorized user on my Amex Platinum card, which means she gets her own 10 visits a year to Delta Sky Clubs. She gets her own separate access to Centurion lounges and Priority Pass and Escape lounges. It's just a way to kind of double the lounge access within your household. I mean, even for something like a Delta Reserve card, it could well be worth paying the authorized user fee on that card if, you know, the two of you are flying Delta all of the time together and want Delta Sky Club access. It's a great way to make your lounge visits go a lot further. You know, even with the Delta Reserve card, those 4 free guest passes you could burn through pretty quickly, especially if you're traveling with family.
Okay. My next tip I would say is for grab and go options for airport lounges. Some of the lounges are now, like American Express is launching these sidecar concepts where it's essentially a grab and go where you can come in, get the food and drink you want, and then get out of there, so you can make more space for the rest of the lounge. But if you're not into the idea of battling crowds or looking for a seat at the lounge, just go in, get what you need, and then you can leave. You know, the grab and go options are really good, especially Capital One has an explicit like grab and go section. When you get into those lounges, you can grab what you need and get out of there if you want to. Especially if you're traveling with people who don't have lounge access and you do want to save a few bucks, go in, grab a backpack full of subs and sodas and whatever you need, and then get out of there.
You really are that guy.
I am. This is a free food proposition for me, lounge access. And then my final tip is about tipping. Don't forget to tip. Bartenders at lounges are slinging drinks for free, but especially if you're in the U.S. where we do have a tipping culture, make sure you're still tipping those folks based on what you think the price of the drinks would cost, because they are working hard back there and they're slinging free drinks. That's tough gig, honestly, as a bartender. Anything else about how to lounge?
Very Minneapolis-focused tip here. Most of the premium travel credit cards have done away with Priority Pass restaurant access. So there is a network of, I don't know, a couple hundred, let's say, Priority Pass restaurants at which you could previously get credits to dine for free or close to it. But basically all of them have done away with that Priority Pass restaurant access. The weird exception here is at the Minneapolis airport, there is one Priority Pass lounge called the PGA Lounge, at which you can go and putt and use a golf simulator, or you can instead get a $15 credit to use at the attached restaurant, which means you can get, you know, I would say one of the better airport, at least airport lounge-ish meals that you can get. Is $15 going to cover everything? Probably not, but it goes a long way, and that is not a Priority Pass restaurant. It is just a built-in perk of visiting that lounge. So that's if you're flying to or through or from Minneapolis, that's a great way to get a better meal and not rely on that Priority Pass restaurant.
That's an awesome tip. Okay, we've sold you on why we love lounges, and we've told you how to get in. Let's go through some of our favorites worldwide. I got a couple of categories. I think we should pick an airline lounge, a business class or first class lounge, a credit card lounge, and then a wild card you get to use on whatever you want. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
What are your 4?
Airline lounge, I am going the Delta Sky Club at O'Hare.
Oh, no.
I take it I stole yours.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, well, you got time to come up with a backup. There are a lot of the newer Delta Sky Clubs are really nice. This one was opened, I think, in 2022, so it's got the newer design. It's pretty big, but most importantly, O'Hare is not a Delta hub. So this lounge is typically pretty empty. Almost every time I've been there, it's been close to empty. It feels very, very different from virtually every other Delta Sky Club that I've visited. It's my favorite one in the country for that reason.
Yep.
Business or first class, Qatar Airways Al Safwa First Class Lounge in Doha. I have spent so much time in this lounge. Arguably too much. Did I spend an overnight there and change? I sure did. Should I have? Probably not, but it was worth it. It is a jaw-dropping space. It's unbelievable that a place that really looks like it was pulled out of a museum can exist within an airport. It's amazing. There are sleeping rooms, so if you have a layover of 6 hours or more, you can get what's basically a small hotel room in the back of the lounge that has its own ensuite bathroom and shower. There's no other place, to my mind, in the world like it. Credit card lounge, I'm going the Capital One lounge at JFK. I had a chance to check this out before it opened, and then again ahead of the trip that we've talked about a couple of times on the show to London this past summer. The drinks are great, the food is great, the decor is amazing. It's a beautiful space, but my favorite thing is the Essa Bagel station where they'll make you a bagel sandwich on site that you can bring with you. Their bagels are very, very good. It's probably better than anything you can get out in the terminal at Terminal 4 in JFK. And wild card, I'm going the newest Delta Sky Club in the G Gates in Minneapolis on Saturdays. Getting real niche. It is a great lounge. It is by far the best. It's not even close. The other two Sky Clubs in Minneapolis are pretty outdated. This lounge is beautiful, but it gets really, really busy. It's a little bit of a hike to get to if you're not departing either from the G gates or the C gates in Minneapolis, which are kind of connected by a walking bridge. But on Saturdays, the last couple of times I've flown Delta out of Minneapolis, I've flown on Saturdays, and that place is borderline empty on all of the Saturdays I've used it recently. It's a real treat.
Yep. Well, you stole my backup, so that was going to be my my number one airline lounge is that G Gates Sky Club. A tip: don't take the long walk all the way down that side of the concourse. Take the tram on the C gates, and then you just take the short walk across the bridge, kind of over where the light rail is. That's how you get there faster.
If you know the Minneapolis airport, you know this well. If you don't, I'm really sorry.
Hyper regional content for your listening pleasure. My favorite business or first class lounge, the Cathay Pacific First Class Lounge in Hong Kong. I've talked about it. I got a massage there and a sit down dining experience, and they were bringing me beers and that they brew there. This one, the Betsy, right here over Kyle's right shoulder. The beer they brew specifically for their first and business class passengers just at that airport. Pretty cool. I'd say my favorite credit card lounge, just to mix it, because you already did Capital One JFK. I loved the Chase JFK lounge, but I've also heard that I hit that at a pretty good time, that one's a little bit tough when it gets busy. So I'll say the Centurion Lounge in Seattle. I really liked. Big, airy on the second floor and kind of open air into the terminals. But it's they had some really good coffee drinks there, and they have a ridiculous espresso martini at the bar there as well. That I'm not usually a big espresso martini guy, but I really liked that one.
Did you pour it into a coffee cup to go?
No, I did not. I should have. I'm pretty sure I took something to go from there, but I think I like to keep it simple with the to-go drink in case I have to ditch it. And then my wild card is the Saga Lounge in Reykjavik. The Icelandair Lounge there is really cool. If you're flying Delta One or any business class, it's the only lounge at the airport. So if you're flying any business class out of there, you get Saga Lounge access. And if you're flying Icelandair Saga, they're kind of business class that are basically just big domestic recliners with crazy good service. You get Saga Lounge access. Very fun, very Icelandic. They've just got like big rocks all over the place, and they've got a big hearth fireplace, which we've talked about is a big winner for me. And the seating is very cool. The views are awesome, and I liked the food and drink there as well. So those are my 4. Do you like my list?
You didn't give 4. You gave 3.
Well, you took my MSPG Club as my favorite airline lounge, and you took the Chicago Sky Club.
Okay, so let the record show Gunnar failed the assignment.
The Admirals Club Lounge in Boston is also pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. High praise.
Okay, let's move on to some listener feedback and questions. We're going to start this listener segment with something we got from premium member Diane, who wrote in our premium members only Facebook group about a ridiculous deal she pulled off recently. She wrote, "I just returned from a week in Ireland thanks to Thrifty Traveler and the great flight deal. We booked at $330 each round trip, and were able to upgrade the overnight flight to Dublin in business class for just $350 each. We booked our hotel in the heart of Temple Bar with Chase points. I bring this forth for no other reason than to say Diane is our traveler of the week.
That's pretty good. Aer Lingus is a sweet spot for cheap business class upgrades. We've seen them get as low as $199 per person each way. It does not get better than that. Diane, well done.
Yeah, an extremely good booking that made us all smarter as well. Runner-up for Traveler of the Week, Annika, who wrote us with the subject line, quote, "Not enough Canada," 3 exclamation points. I just wanted to get that one in for the record, Kyle, to let you know that there are dozens of us out there who love Canada content.
Are you Annika?
I'm not Annika, no.
Are you Matthew Johnson?
I'm not
Matthew Who wrote in Johnson. Last week?
These are actual people in the wild who love and appreciate my Canada content. Just wanted to let you know. Okay, the real question of the week is from Xander. Xander says, "Gents, I'm getting married in Italy next October." That's sweet. "And I'm looking to book the first leg of that trip from New York City to Rome on a direct flight in business class. These flights have just become available, and as of right now, they are an egregious 250K points per traveler on Delta, American, and United. ITA is not yet bookable." He said he's run the same search on Air France, Flying Blue, British Airways, Air Canada, which is a trick he learned from us, but the redemptions on these partners do not seem to be available. His question: do you think I should wait for a deal to come up later on, or should I be making alternative plans through other European cities? 250K is a hard pill to swallow when I know I can get to other airports in Europe for about 60K. I was also wondering if you think these business class redemptions will eventually show up on the partner airlines I mentioned above. Kyle, what is your strategy if you were Xander here?
To quote my favorite gif of all time, "Por qué no los dos?" Why not do both? Why not do something now and then wait for something better? So the strategy we've come back to all of the time when the pieces aren't lining up perfectly is book something that's going to work, whether it's a more expensive than you'd like business class redemption straight into Rome, or probably better yet, just to continental Europe, as close as you can get for something around that 60,000 point redemption you're really hoping for. And then keep looking. Book with a program that's going to allow you to cancel for free or close to it with reasonable fees. Because then if something does, on one of these amazing partner redemptions, like booking ITA Airways through United using their Mileage Plus miles, then you can cancel that award you've already booked, use those miles for a different trip down the road, and rebook something that you really want that's going to get you to Rome in a straight shot. But I wouldn't wait around. I mean, I do think the likelihood that for next October, the sweet spot for booking those flights is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of between February and June, somewhere in there, 3 to 6 months in advance. But I wouldn't wait around and just pin your hat only on that redemption. I think you got to do some of both.
Yeah. If you have the points, secure something. This is your wedding. Let's not play around here. You got to make sure that you get there. Also, Kyle and I accept your invitation to attend your wedding in Italy. It sounds like a lot of fun. We'll see you there. If you'd like to answer us, if you want us to answer your question on the podcast, or if you have any feedback, hit us up at podcast@thriftytraveler.com, and we might feature your question on next week's show. All right, to close the show, as always, it's on the spot, and it's Kyle's turn to put me on the spot. What do you got?
So last week's show, you mentioned that you may or may not have been overserved at our company retreat in Palm Springs. And then we never got to that question as the episode went on. So to put you on the spot, not just did you get overserved, but if you did, who overserved you?
Who overserved me? So I get to put some blame on some people. Kyle, I think I walked up to the line, but I don't think I crossed it. All right.
That's what you think?
I do. I do think that. Did it get a little loose? Yeah, it got a little loose, but it was a level of drinking that I like to call business drunk. Just no lines were crossed, and my nap, my 5 p.m. nap, was timed just perfectly. I think, as our coworker Jackson said, Gunnar needed some time on the charging pad, and I got that time. So no lines were crossed. We had a good time. I think everyone enjoyed seeing me slip slowly into oblivion and then just immediately rescue my day with a perfectly timed hammock nap. So I did nothing wrong. I would change nothing, and I have zero regrets.
for the record, we will put on YouTube in the video version of this show a photo of Gunnar on the so-called charging pad. And then I think I want to hear from you, podcast@thriftytraveler.com. Was Gunnar taking a nap or did Gunnar pass out? You be the judge.
Well, with that, I want to thank you all so much for listening to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. Please rate us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice and be nice to me when you consider if it was a nap or a pass out. Like and subscribe to Thrifty Traveler on YouTube and send this episode to somebody you know who needs a vacation. If you have any feedback, send us a note at podcast@thriftytraveler.com, and I'd love to hear from you there. Kyle, tell us about the team.
This episode was produced by your favorite host who does, in fact, need to spend some time on the charging pad after this podcast, Gunnar Olsen. It was produced and edited by Sylvia Thomas and edited for video by Kyle Thomas. Our theme music is by Benjamin Tissot. See you next week.